Hey, Mr. Peller, this is Keith Babis. This is our World Bank project, and for our data table, we chose GDP, the gross domestic product, and the graph you see here, it is shown in U.S. dollars, current U.S. dollars, and it's not just for the United States. This graph shows the gross domestic product of the entire world for an 8-year span. And as you can see, it's a pretty simple data plot, steady growth from 2002 until 2008. And then 2008, when the recession hit, did not just hit the United States, hit the entire world. And that's probably why it dipped down. And then you can see in 2009, 2010, the steady growth is coming back. And so with this graph, we can kind of see and analyze what the world's entire GDP is. So quickly before, hey, Mr. Bill, sorry about that real quick. So I just want to say quickly before we go into the math, I just wanted to say what GDP was or is, and stands for gross domestic product, and that is basically all the final goods and services produced in a country. That's how you get the GDP. There's a few different ways to do it, but that is the basic principle.
So we're going to find the area under the curve using the trapezoid rule. Which it's kind of like Riemann sums, except for you're using a trapezoid under the curve to estimate the area. And so you have height 1 on this side, and height 2 on this side, and the width. So an example of how that would work is if you had a graph like x squared, and you were going to find the area from like 0 to 5 using 5 intervals, you would just make trapezoids where they hit at the first point and then at the second point, and then here and at this point, and so on. You can tell that's going to be a lot more accurate than the Riemann sums because it really follows the curve. And the equation for a trapezoid area is 1/2 height 1 plus height 2 times the width. So pretty much the average of the two heights times the width. So here's our graph, and you can see that it's going to be pretty easy to see where the trapezoids are going to go. There's one there, one there, there, and so on until the end. With the width being 1 year here. So to find the area under the curve, we are just going to take, for each little sector, this point and this point as h1 and h2, times them by 0.5, h2, and then by 1 for the width, and then add up all this area to get the total area under the curve, which comes out to be a really big number. It's 1.2852 times 10 to the 28th. It's pretty easy to see that the trapezoid rule is going to be a lot more effective than the Riemann sum rule because it really follows the graph much clearer than a Riemann sum would, because you can see with the Riemann sum you would have all these extra areas that make the graph, the estimate, much less accurate. So, yeah.
So when looking at this type of data table and trying to analyze and interpret the math behind it, you have to understand what is going on currently when this data is taken. So when looking at this, you can see that you have steady growth, like I said before, up until 2008. And if you look at the map above, you can see that America and China have by far the highest GDP per year. This is data taken from 2007 to 2011, so for that 4-year span, highest GDP. And you see this huge drop in 2008 to 2009, and we're talking trillions of dollars. So although the decline does not look that much, it's huge because we're talking about trillions here. And the reason it dropped was because the United States experienced a recession. And so when it experienced this recession, it impacted the whole world because America does not only have the highest GDP, it is connected and interlinked with pretty much the world's economy. Also very directly linked to China's economy, which has the second highest GDP. So when America suffers, China will suffer. And when the two highest GDPs suffer, the whole world is going to. And you see it hit hard you see it hit hard in Europe, and that's where you get the acronym PIGS. It's not very nice, but talking about the countries in the EU that are suffering a lot because of the recession. You have Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain, because they had shaky economies to begin with, and when the recession hit, they had nothing to rely on, and they went further and further into debt. And America also went far into debt, and so that's why you see this decline. But there's hope, because you see after 2009, in a year, the growth goes back to pretty much what it was before. And you can even see discrepancy in 2005. There was a small recession in the United States in the mid-2000s. And so you can see how the growth slowed a little bit.
Guess who? Munzie. So here is the original picture of the graph. There it is, right there. So now we're going to find the average rate of change. So basically you find the average rate of change by taking a line from the first point to the last point, straight across, and then you do the rise over run, and that equation is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I don't need to write out all those numbers, but we take the y values and subtract them over the x values, and our final answer will be 3.743 times 10 to the 12th.